happened at Richmond.
Uncanny. The footy gods giveth and the footy gods taketh away, 12 months apart. Jack Revolt, welcome.
What are the chances? Eh?
What are the chances?
What are the chances?
With 21 seconds to go, the chances were pretty slim, to be frank,
Exactly.
Jack.
Yes. Yes, they were, Jared.
How did it happen?
Just one piece of the puzzle went wrong, and unfortunately we just couldn't. The ball bounced out of Sandlin's hands and it just went to Lachie Neal. And it's twice. Mundy's done it to us pretty late in the games at the G. Last time was at the other end of the ground, and this time.
Who's pushing Dan Rioli around to the back? Who's supposed to?
I suppose, well, it comes down to every player, but more the on-field leaders have got to hold the responsibility for that. Yeah, so it was like we had a pretty honest discussion about it today, and unfortunately it's a very steep learning curve.
Yeah. So how forensic is today? Is it going, so this is how we set up, this is how but this was how we were supposed to set up? So what does today actually look like to make sure that next time you are better set up, I suppose?
Look, it's just... It's like we certainly looked at this and thought, look, we need to be better, and we needed to have someone come off the back of the square, because that sort of stunts Lachie Neal. The ball might go a bit higher, and other than that, we're actually not set up too bad. But there's no point wasting a whole hour of review on 21 seconds when you serve up what we served up in the first 3 quarters.
There's got to come a day, Jack, where it works, doesn't it? I mean, there's just been too many examples for us to say it's okay. It's happened. We've had what, four in recent years. Is it a pattern? Is it just bad luck? Is it your leaders? I'll be honest. Can I say this to you?
Yeah.
Why weren't you yelling out from centre forward, Dan, get around the back? I mean, do you have to accept...
Have you looked at the behind the goal?
No, but tell me what you were doing.
I set the forwards up where I felt they should be, and Alex had set up and Trent had set up, and the ball just it bounces up in the air. Grigg misses it just. The Sandilands doesn't twirl, it bobbles out, it falls to Neal. Sometimes
Dustin
the ball
goes
falls that way.
Yeah.
But what I will continue to harp on is there is no point focusing on the last 21 seconds if you are not going to get the first 3 quarters right. And we just didn't get the first 3 quarters right. We were outplayed.
That was... It's interesting you say that, because those first 3 quarters, that third quarter, Jack, was really poor.
Would you mind, could we come back to that? I just want to bring Jordan in, because you were the masters of the close finish at Hawthorn, to the point where it seemed like you'd perfected, didn't matter how long was left in that season, you kept winning those games. So when you watch the behind the goals footage, can you see what might have happened in a more experienced, in that Hawthorn team that you were playing in, that team couldn't lose those?
Looking at that screen, it looks pretty well set up, and I was saying to Jack before, I said the funny thing is when you do go in front with 21 seconds to go, you try and get as many numbers behind the ball as you possibly can. Now, what that may do is relax some of the defenders who are already on forwards, because you've got to go out there covering space. So you might think I don't have to go as tight on my man because someone else will actually come over and cover me because they've got extras there. But every team, I would imagine, goes through that scenario, and correct me if I'm wrong. So forwards would have a certain position they need to be in. Backs usually are just man on man, and then the forwards that go down there to be spares are those roving players that if the ball does get kicked high, they need to impact. So structurally, I'm not too sure whether they were right, but every side goes through those scenarios.
The other side of the coin is Fremantle winning it. So Richmond pushed 9 back, 1 spare in the square. The 8 others were all manned up, and Fremantle kept them off the square. So they set up deep enough to allow for the possibility of breaking forward. So we've all focused on how it was lost, but there was something quite masterful in how it was won.
Yeah, and that's the thing. When you take forwards from the forward half of the ball, it allows backline players to actually get that run and carry through the midfield. And we've had it this year as well. We've had probably 2 occasions where we've gone a goal down and we needed to win the game. So they flood behind the ball. We set up all our backs in aggressive positions and just try and get the ball forward. And we've had chances, but just the skill going in side forward 50 has let us down. But yeah, maybe you do need to have a player come off the square so that ball does go higher, easy to impact.
You know the most beautiful thing of it, Jack? I know you can't talk about it. I know you'd love to, because you love your footy. The kick by Lachie Neal to space and not to a contest, so everyone could climb on. The kick to the space.
I think you know as a player where the spares will be positioned.
He's tired. They've got 20 seconds to go. He's been running for 120, and he kicks it out to the left and allows Mundy run to space.
Yeah. So if you're a spare player and you go down there, what space would you cover?
Well,
top of the goal square, probably?
In front of the goal square group, right? Or top of the goal square, so there. And what did he do? He kicked it to the space.
But the week before in your game, is that one entry that you could manufacture went to a big pack.
Yeah, top of the goal square.
That kick couldn't find the space, and Neil did find the space.
Yeah. When I was at Hawthorn, we used to have a play when we were up and trying to save the game. We would get all the players around, because knowing that they had defenders back in our forward 50, we would kick the ball on a 45-degree angle away from anyone. Just kick it to space and let our forwards or whoever run onto it, create a stoppage, suck more time out of the clock.
Sorry, the third quarter.
The third quarter. No, we haven't got time for that. It was a bad quarter. It was a bad quarter. It was a bad. Anyway, I want to move on to Melbourne. On the weekend, Melbourne targeted Rory Sloane. There's no doubt about that. You gave him Bernie Vince, but there was a message before. We're going after their best player, the most influential player. At the start of the game, Jordan, it's been more to my attention that you ran straight in as you were setting up, and you, I won't say elbowed, you forearmed Rory Sloane. People at Melbourne have said, some kids looked at that and said, right, we're on here. How significant is something like that? You might think it's not. Jack, you just went straight through the middle and you hit Rory Sloane.
That's my
Why did you do
usual running pattern.
Turn it up.
I think we had a job last week against Hawthorn to sort of be physical with a few players, and we just didn't carry it out. There was just no existence of it. So as a leader, you really take that on board and say, hey, that's not good enough. If the leaders weren't doing it, how can we expect these young kids to do it? So Bernie was tagging Rory Sloane. So you've got to let the young kids know that you're invested in it, and two, you've got to let Bernie know that, hey, we're here to help you.
It's not a major thing. It's not a major. It's just, I'm just going to go down. I'm going to hit you on the way through to let my teammates know that we're going for you.
Yeah, I mean, because he's such a good player. If Bernie was to do that job by himself, who knows? He might win, he might lose, but you need a whole team to help you.
Often the opposition, Jack, helps the person who's getting tagged. Often it's his teammates who do the hard stuff to shake the tag.
Correct.
You know, so on the weekend it was Melbourne saying, no, we'll help you tag, and there's no doubt that the Crows didn't do enough, and Roy didn't do enough to help the tag. Yeah,
well, I think it becomes a battle of, I suppose it's those guys that are right around the ball. So a lot of times it's the midfielders that are getting tagged. So they rely heavily on the bigger bodies of the ruckman, other players getting them out at stoppage. But I think just setting the scene, like for mine, the one that comes as well, like you see something like that from Geordie. I reckon on a Friday night we might have played the Hawks a couple of years ago, and Cochin went to Hodge.
Yeah, yes.
And straight in the face. And I just a bit of steely resolve. And it's something that you can't rely on every week to go back to the well and nearly start a fracas at the start of the game. But there's moments in seasons and in games where, as Geordie's saying, your football club needs to stand up and the leaders need to lead from the front.
I reckon it was the best performance by any club this year. People at Melbourne are telling me that it was the best performance they've seen for a decade. Is that some of the discussion you've heard? They were so proud, just proud.
Yeah, I mean, internally we don't talk like that, but I suppose coming off the disappointment of last week, that fuels it. Our challenge now is to back it up after a really good win. Can we still bring that same intensity this week against North?
You've seen breakout wins, and surely that was a breakout win. That's the new Melbourne Guernsey with iSelect has been the sponsor.
You need to hold it up.
The women's team.
I've taught you how to hold jumpers.
On the back. There you go.
Oh, you're hopeless.
So they were our women's major sponsor, and I think that the work that they did with the women's, and they've got on board. So Scotty Wilson, the CEO of iSelect, has got on board as our jumper sponsor for this year. So fantastic effort by iSelect.
How have you viewed the debate around sledging and the personally insulting words that are meant to offend?
Yeah, look, sledging is a part of the game, and there is. We've had words, and we have jovial words out in the ground, and I've sledged Roo out in the ground. to try and gain a mental advantage. But certainly, I think what we've viewed and what we're seeing over the last 2 days would be over the line when it comes to family. And there's been some pretty disappointing incidents in the past with stuff like this, and it's unfortunate as a community that we've got another one.
Is it up to the players to stamp this out?
Well, it can only be up to the players.
Yeah,
the players are the ones that are out there.
So where does it go from here? So we've had this weekend. Everyone's spoken about it. Where does it go with you guys, players?
Well, I don't think any player would have missed it.
No.
Everyone would have seen what's happened, so...
I think for me it's pretty clear-cut. You don't say anything about anyone's family, wife, girlfriend, mum, sister, brother, anything. Family is a no-go zone for me. So to see that on the weekend was quite poor. And anyone who, from now on, does exactly the same thing is completely stupid.
So it's got to be policed by the players. So if something is said on the field, will the players take control and, hey, you know, will that happen, or will you just let it go and see what happens?
Yeah, it's a good point. Not sure. Not sure how I would react. I wouldn't expect any of our players to go there, and I would be bitterly disappointed if they did.
If I heard someone sledge one of our players that way, I would react like Jaron Geary reacted, I would think. And if it was vice versa, if I heard one of our boys say something like that to one of the opposition teams, I would confront them and say, mate, there is a line and there is a mental advantage to be gained in every game. And there has been some ripping lines said to players that I would have said really affected them mentally, but that is outside. Have
you ever gone over the line, Jack, you think?
No, I don't think I've ever gone over the line. But I've said things and I'm sure everyone's said things in a state where they would look back on it and think, oh, I probably wish I hadn't said that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Have you, Jordan?
I don't talk much on the field.
Yeah.
Doesn't interest me.
More of a finger waver.
No, just...
No, I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4 premierships. Yeah. It's been a really interesting and big weekend for footy and for the players. And I think, as Gerald was saying, you know, the good's going to come of this. And you guys have to police it.
Yeah. I think the message is loud and clear. It's unacceptable.
You should have grabbed a fistful of jumper when you Patrick Cripps, as it turned out, because that would have been okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
bewildering.
Bizarre,
is what it is. Good to see you both. Good luck.
Thanks,
Jordan Lewis and Jack Riewoldt with us on AFL 360.